Before we jump into the craziness that was the ending of this episode, I have to give another praise towards the mother and father of our main character, because often in anime, especially in isekai style anime, loving parents is something that's not relevant, and it's very rare you have a quality anime come out that puts the emphasis on something that seems genuine like love, especially when you have a situation revolving around assassination. I mean, look towards the end of the episode before the first kill. We have our boy Lugh say, hey, why did you raise me to have emotions? Why not just raise me to be heartless? Like, what's the deal if you want me to kill? Like, why did you make it so I feel like a person? Because from his original life, he was raised as a tool by the organization. And his father said the complete opposite. Because you're not a tool, you're human, and emotion should go into who you kill. And it's interesting, in the complete opposite of something he's never experienced. Throughout this episode, while the parents weren't necessarily the most relevant aspect per this episode, you know, the idea of them being genuinely happy despite having their windows and building and their home almost be obliterated because our boy tested how much mana he had and basically launch a nuclear bomb. Rather than being upset, they're genuinely proud, saying, hey, can you teach him something a little more subtle, because clearly he has potential, but that's more for war, not necessarily for assassination. The idea of him growing up a second time, being both a familiar situation, learning to kill, going after his target, that being the hero, but being raised with a genuine family is something that I think really separates this show among many other aspects, but I think that's the thing that really sticks out to me the most, that makes The World's Finest Assassin something that I could easily recommend to so many people who maybe aren't normally into those isekai fantasy style shows. Now, the end of the episode, when it came to the first kill, of course it's not really the first kill for him given his life of killing, but in terms of this world it definitely was. And I actually thought he wasn't going to go through with it, not because he didn't want to kill, but mainly because he started seeing resemblance to Dia, and I thought maybe he was going to say, like, oh, this is actually an illusion, this is my teacher, or something like that. Like, that's kind of where my mind was at. So when they're building up and they're giving the explanation, she basically did arson, she killed, she robbed, if what was being said was true, she was not a good person, and that could very well be an act. But to see him and the way he decided with his newly created blade, which shouldn't rust and is super sharp, cut off a hand, the adrenaline, you won't feel pain, but your blood loss will kill you before anything happens. And to see the switch of her being so vile and corrupt, I have a feeling when that blade was thrown at the end of the episode, it kind of went into the throat for a very painful death given her change in tone. But like, it's interesting, right? Because this is both the most familiar yet different situation I think he's ever been at, and I think calling it a first kill, even without the father knowing about his original life, I think is very warranted, because one, it's a similar situation, killing people, because obviously he'd done that before, but the idea that it was up to him, how to do it, what he wanted to do, how everything was going to go down, that was completely under his control, and something you don't really get to see with a show like this too often. I really appreciate how this show isn't afraid to be bold, it isn't afraid to be different, and it isn't afraid to take its time. A majority of this episode was actually stuff that typically I don't expect in anime adaptations. It's the kind of stuff that I typically expect source readers, especially if it's from a light novel, to come into my comments and say, hey, this actually got a bunch of cuts, but here's all this extra information about spells and how he made his spells and everything like that. So the fact that episode 3 could be like their journey, and of course she already parted ways, so maybe to some people that's fast, but the idea of taking it slow, reading into his attributes, showing just how good of a build he's actually made, because despite the goddess laughing in his face originally, it's clear what he's set up in terms of his skills and attributes is going to be perfect for assassination. He's to the point that he can create guns, he can now fire said guns, can create a tank if he needs to, or a cannon I guess I should say, to destroy a mountain. And while it's not the most subtle, you can see the progression of his firepower and how deadly it's going to be. And the most interesting and I think important thing that this episode revealed is that he can create spells, something we already knew about, but the idea of just how it shouldn't happen, the idea that people don't really think outside the box. He created iron ore, and then that became silver to then gold, but the idea that when they kind of rewrote the formula, so to speak, and she tried it originally, she almost got obliterated. I thought she was about to get isekai'd, but once he writes it down and then she recites it, because he created it, I guess it's kind of a part of their world, then she could do it as well. You could easily get rich. Like, if he wasn't already in a wealthy family, like they were like in a shack or something, the amount of gold he can make to basically make them very, very wealthy, it's kind of insane. I'm genuinely curious about the kind of humanity aspect about this show, because clearly being a person and not a tool is what this family thrives on. You can see that he's acting like a person, he feels genuine happiness, and while he may be confused and not totally understanding why he was raised with emotion, if he wants him to also kill all at the same time, you can tell that being a person is going to be the most important thing for him. And I think based on what the father's setting up with the idea of you have to put emotions into your kills, he's probably going to end up liking the hero, whoever that might be, right? And if he ends up liking the hero, and that ultimately comes to be like a issue, kind of like a wedge issue for him, he has his mission with the goddess, kill the hero, but on a personal level, maybe he doesn't want to do that. So then, like I mentioned, I think it was in episode 2's review, will it become a situation where the hero and the assassin team up to fight the goddess, or, you know, is there going to be something else? Is he going to create a reviving magic? Will he kill the hero and revive the hero? Because technically everything will be kind of set there. It's an interesting concept in a fascinating world. Like, really, shows like these you don't see too often, mainly because if you do, they're very cut down. Because I think a lot of times when I see these anime that are very basic and they don't have a lot of depth, I'm willing to believe the source readers that in the source it fleshes it out enough that it becomes a lot more interesting. And a show like this, I think if you've seen at least a dozen isekai anime from the last year or two, not like just general, because there's a lot of quality general isekais, but if you just take 12 from the past year or two, you're gonna see how there's probably a good handful, maybe even half, that were pretty bad or pretty mediocre, and you could see how a bad adaptation could have cut this down. Him picking his skills, him creating spells with Dia, creating an actual relationship, and the idea of that first kill, like all that could have been very, very basic and just not that interesting. But here, as we see, very well done, meaty, full of substance, and even if there was more content in the source, I think the anime did a hell of a good job at keeping it quick enough while also taking its time where it counts. I mean, for me, Wednesdays are a blessing for this show alone. I mean, The World's Finest Assassin, I was cautiously optimistic about. I thought it was going to be pretty entertaining, but nothing that would really kind of stretch my brain and make me think about the world mechanics, how the character is going to change from being an assassin, because when you hear about him being an assassin, reincarnated as an assassin, you don't really think humanity's on the table, and if it is, it's going to be way down the line. And while he's sticking true to his original character, being reborn and being raised by a genuine family, not an organization, you can tell how he's being influenced while still sticking true to his character, which makes him one of the more refreshing kind of isekai protagonists that I think 2021 has to offer, and I don't think that's an exaggeration. I think that's legit how good it is. And it'll be interesting. I mean, we're 3 episodes in. Hopefully, if people have a 3-episode rule, this one stood out to them and they're going to keep on with it, because definitely one of my personal favorites for sure so far. But let me know your thoughts, feelings down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.